Welcome to the License to Disrupt, the webinar. I'm Alexia Antoine, founder of Upward Anchor, licensed professional counselor and transformational coach. I am here to present to you the very first webinar that Upward Anchor is hosting. So excited to do this. And it will be available for purchase afterwards. It'll be recorded. So here we are. The whole webinar is all about innovative thought. So tonight I have with me two powerful professional women in the luxury jewelry space and in the life insurance, health insurance space, as well as financial. So I'm looking forward to hearing and sharing them with you. When we created this webinar, the whole idea was to be able to think about bringing the whole self to business, especially as we are now in a time of innovation. So the whole idea here is to think about not only being the whole person, but what will it take in order to meet up with the demands of today's society, today's world, business, life, otherwise. You don't have to be an entrepreneur or a corporation in order to benefit from this. If you are a human being, and if you are noticing the changes in this world, then you definitely need to have this information. So a little bit about me, Grenadian, by way of my dad, my mother, American, as well as Cherokee Blackfoot. So it is a wealth of experience and a wealth of different perspectives going on there. So that in itself contributed to a way of me looking at things differently. So I look forward to introducing these other ladies to you shortly. And the whole point here is for all of us to share our stories. So this is the place to be very transparent. So went through a 12-year depression from age 15 to 27. So during that time, had a failure to launch, experienced graduating from college, doing well, starting college early, getting good grades, only to not know what to do at the end of that. So came home 27 and experienced a failure to launch, needless to say. Didn't know where to begin, where to start a career, finished my counseling degree, but was depressed and didn't know how to get past that. Overall, I eventually waited for the depression to go away. It never did. So I did what I knew how to do best, and I resorted to books. I went to the online public library. I'm in Dallas, Texas, and I started reserving book after book after book. And I went for the personal development genre because I needed a coach that I could access 24/7. Sure enough, when I read those books, the first book that I opened, remember opening that nice hardback green cover, read Stacey Eldridge's Becoming Myself, and I started noticing that my brain was going in an upward direction for once, and it was a relief. But 3 days later, when I closed that cover, my brain sunk right back down to where it was. It was a nice break, but I needed something that would last. So I went back and got the next book in the pile, then the next and the next. So 5 books in, had the good experience. It lasted longer and longer each time, but then that same sinking feeling brought me back down. So 30 days in, or a little less than 30 days, I was working at a call center at the time, figured out a way to start working somehow. And I was sitting at my desk cubicle on the queue, a silent queue, no calls coming in. And within those 30 days, I had been on my 18th book, read 18 books within 30 days. The moment I closed that 18th book, I noticed that my mind never sunk back down to the same spot it was in before. I didn't have a word for it before, but once I was finally working in my field, serving individuals through counseling, I put a word to it without even knowing it. I was sitting in front of a woman in her 60s who had the most vibrant blue eyes, and I could tell that she had lived a fulfilled life. There was just one area that she had come to me to fine tune. And I shared with her what I did, more specifically, giving her the formula for how to get the same effect or similar effect as I got in my life. And I told her, you do this, this, and this to anchor your mind upward. Well, unbeknownst to me, she wrote it down came back the next week and read to me her notes off of her iPad. And those words stuck out. Anchor the mind upward. Those 4 words stuck with me. And then I started scribbling and creating a logo, the logo that you saw in the intro video. And from there, I built Upward Anchor. Now, honestly, I founded it in 2018. But because of self-expectation, which is a whole other thing, a whole other way of saying analysis paralysis, looking at yourself, judging yourself, being the judge, jury, plaintiff, defendant, all of that. For those reasons, I sat on Upward Anchor up until December 2022. So it is a new endeavor at this point that you're watching this, that I said, I'm going to go ahead and start, and I'm going to go ahead and begin walking out that vision, because that's what I'm accountable for. And so from that very time, I started writing. I wrote a series. License to Disrupt is the second book in that series. License to Affirm is the first book. All of that is about personal development, where I share even more depth and detail than you're hearing here, because I have the 100 pages or so to do it. And this is inspired by that second book. And this is where I start looking at the territories that we're meant to take on. Being a licensed professional counselor and specializing in concentration, goal achievement, goal focus, and purpose-driven action, a lot of the clients that I work with tell me that they feel that they are not able to connect with purpose. They know that they're high achievers, or they have the potential to be high achievers, and yet their minds just do not line things up the way they need to line things up. I like to present the rocket field affirmations as the method to get that laser focus back. So rocket field affirmations is taking regular affirmations and we're dumping rocket fuel on them. This is a whole new structure strategy that I created. It's proprietary. You really don't hear it anywhere. But it came from me going through a 12-year depression from age 15 to 27, where I experienced a failure to launch at age 27. Failure to launch after graduating from grad school with my master's in counseling, ready to heal other people, ready to be a solution, and yet could not solve my own problem. My self-esteem was in the tank. I felt like I couldn't think clearly. Every step was coupled with self-doubt, coupled with fear, coupled with shame. And then I eventually went to find mentorship that I could access 24/7, and that is a book. I found Stacey Eldridge's Becoming Myself. I recommend it. And when I lifted that hardcover and I lit into it, I've started feeling myself putting one step in front of the other and hearing myself encourage myself as I was reading. Okay, Alexia, we're here. We can do this. You can do this. And yet, when I closed the cover on the third day after completing the book, I still felt myself being pushed back down into depression. Not to be delayed, I picked up another book. I had already by then reserved several titles, several books that I could read in order to get myself healed. I could not afford counseling at the time, and I was severely depressed. And so I went through the second book, third book, fourth book, fifth book, gradually improving and feeling better, but that sinking feeling still came back. And I felt myself still experiencing being stuck. I'm admittedly stubborn, and so I kept going. I was working at a call center at that time in Dallas. It was a quiet queue, no calls coming in, so my nose was in the book, and I would complete a book. It was not uncommon for me to complete a book during a shift, during a quiet queue. And so fast forward, in less than 30 days, just shy of 30 days, I had read my 18th book. I closed the book, set it aside, and I waited to see what would happen. Would my mood drop back down? Or had I finally cracked this thing? Sure enough, I had cracked it, and my brain, my emotions stayed elevated, no longer sinking down to where I was before, no longer confused, no longer resistant. My brain was no longer resistant to strategizing and finding ways to create breakthroughs.
So when it comes to our natural brilliance, there's this thing called potential. So Abraham Maslow, humanist, psychologist of the 40s, 50s era, identified self-actualization, which is the fifth and highest level of the human needs hierarchy, as the greatest place a person can reach in their lives. In their lives on earth, a person who is living out the fullest expression of who they are, what they're capable of doing, is said to have been self-actualized or to have reached self-actualization. If you, like I, have been experiencing 2023 and the heat and the pressure that comes from that, there's a reason for it, because this is the time now that we find out not only what am I good at, what am I a natural at, how do I further hone those skills, but more importantly, how do I make sure that everything that is in me gets out into the world as it's meant to? So what are some tools that we can use to enhance and really get a handle on our natural brilliance? Well, paraliminals is one of those tools that is wonderful. I enjoy using them myself. Actually, Learning Strategies Corporation is a great website that has a whole library of paraliminals. What paraliminals are soundtracks that focus on the brain waves and the sound waves and getting those two to sync up. They use sound, whether they be alpha, beta, many different types of well-studied sound waves, to increase a person's productivity, their perspective, many different ways, many different tools to get people at their optimal best. Actually, it's something that I'm starting to tap into again myself. And it is a great thing that I've heard about years ago, thanks to my dad. So paraliminals are a powerful tool for natural brilliance. Happy Saturday. Another natural brilliance resource is our very own emotions. So there's a thing called emotional intelligence that talks about understanding not only our own emotions, but emotions of others as well. And this is one of the ways that we're able to tap into our fuller selves, because our emotions inform us about a lot. So not only understanding emotions, but being able to identify them, then use them and manage them, that's a powerful tool. When we're talking about true transformation, specifically brilliance, we're thinking about what is it that I'm able to do naturally. So that's the question for today. If you can do it naturally and it flows out of you, what is it that you want to do with it? What kind of impact does it create? And what feedback do you get from people when you offer what is so natural for you to offer?